Lux Travel here in Franklin, Tennessee. I see there are a few people on who I have not met yet. So for those of you who we haven't met yet, I want to let you know I'm a travel advisor. I help busy and curious travelers turn their biggest travel dreams into extraordinary journeys. And my goal is to do it without the stress. Because I have personally traveled to more than 40 countries. I am able to assist with everything from once in a lifetime African safaris, like we're going to talk about today, to European river cruises, awesome weekend getaways, and beyond. I wanted to host this evening and ask Chelsea to join us because safari is an experience that changed the way that I see the world, truly. Traveling through South Africa and Botswana earlier this year reminded me that travel is not just about where you go, but it's about how deeply you connect to a place. And I think that Africa does that better than anywhere else that I've ever been. There is just nothing like being surrounded by that vastness and the stillness and sometimes the excitement of safari. So tonight we're joined by Chelsea Drake from andBeyond, which is one of my most trusted safari partners. I had the privilege of traveling with andBeyond in March, and we went through South Africa and Botswana. And I can honestly say it was one of the most meaningful travel experiences of my life. They do a great job. At the end, we'll have time to answer your questions. So, you can think about what those might be. But Chelsea, we're excited to learn from you.
Yay! Thank you so much for the introduction, Kristina. And again, my name's Chelsea Drake. I partner exclusively with Kristina on itineraries to help her clients experience Africa in the most tailor-made way possible. Africa is such an amazing destination, and I'm so excited to talk about it with you all. I actually traveled with andBeyond as a guest before I joined the company. That's how profound of an experience it was for me. But it's definitely one of those destinations, it's very different to plan. It's not like planning a trip to Europe or the Caribbean or a beach vacation. You really need expert coordination. There's a lot of interconnecting flights in Africa, the wildlife seasonality, depending on what you want to see. There's park regulations, but there's also some amazing guides, and we really want to find the right lodge pairings for your itinerary. And when you're booking a safari with Kristina through andBeyond, there are additional perks there. You can obtain certain room upgrades, additional unforgettable experiences, or tap into some additional amenities at the properties. You'll also have competitive pricing and exclusive offers that are not necessarily going to be available online. We also waive booking and transaction fees for the itineraries. And most importantly, you're going to have an expert helping you create a tailor-made itinerary designed specifically to your travel wishes and your preferences. So today is all about showing you what's possible in Africa. If you're not familiar with andBeyond, we are a luxury travel company, but we also have a very clear purpose, and it's to reveal the world's wild places in a way that protects them for future generations. So in addition to working with Kristina on crafting some really amazing itineraries, we also operate a portfolio of amazing lodges and camps across Africa, South Asia, and South America. So having said that, you have us to help assist with the complete itinerary, but you're also going to see an andBeyond lodge in South Africa or one in East Africa. And we'll talk a little bit about what that experience could look like and why we might want to incorporate it into one of your itineraries. But each location where we have all of our lodges is chosen for its natural beauty, the unique wildlife, and really the ability to offer guests meaningful experiences that can connect them with the land and also the cultures that live alongside. The other thing I want to mention is that, and this is one of the reasons why I joined the company, is that we really aren't like most travel companies. What makes us different is that we don't want to just show you the world. We want to actively help protect it at the same time. And we do that through through protecting the land, endangered species, some conservation projects we have in place, and deep partnerships with the local communities. We really were founded on the belief that travel can be a force for good. And our entire model, which you see here, is care for the land, care for the community, and care for wildlife revolves around this. We believe that a private conservation experience can make a good safari into a lifetime memory. And I'm going to show you a couple of images shortly just to show you what that looks like. And we also believe that travel creates opportunity. We really want to see our local communities succeed as well. So we invest in education, healthcare access, small business development, and career pathways. And actually, many of our guides and our chefs and our managers started in these very programs. So whether you'd want to be involved in some of this during the trip or not, your trip is directly helping fund one of these pillars, whether it's wildlife, land, or the local communities. Pinda Private Game Reserve in South Africa is an incredible concession. So you probably have heard of Kruger National Park. This is another concession. It's about 7 hours south of this area, and this is where the company started. So just to give you a quick little snippet of our history, about 30 years ago, this land was basically a dilapidated pineapple farm. And the founders saw an opportunity and worked with the local community and helped to rehabilitate that ecosystem and reintroduce iconic species like lions, cheetahs, excuse me, and rhinos, which once lived in this area. And now Pinda Private Game Reserve is such an amazing place to go on a safari. It's home to the Big Five, and it just has a remarkable diversity of habitats from rare sand forests to open grasslands. It's not just a breathtaking experience. It's really a living example of how nature can be restored. And we'll talk a little bit about what some of the wildlife in that area looks like. For example, the cheetah. Pinda is globally known for conservation work with cheetahs, one of Africa's most vulnerable predators. And what our specialists do is they monitor the genetics, the movement, the health of these cats to really ensure a stable and healthy population. Not only that, they've been quietly viewed for many years at Pinda Private Game Reserve. They tend to be a little bit more skittish, like the leopard, but the rate of visibility to see cheetah in Pinda is quite good. And it's, these expert guides who make every single moment meaningful. You are on a private concession in Pinda Private Game Reserve. We're going to talk a little bit about what that means and why we always like to include a private game reserve in one of your safari experiences. Okay, so for those of you that have not been to Africa before, I'm going to kind of paint a picture of what an afternoon could look like. So imagine this. You have made it to East Africa for your safari. So we've already done a morning game drive. You're at the lodge. You've spent the afternoon relaxing. Maybe you had a massage or maybe you're relaxing by the pool. And as that Africa heat softens, you wander into the lodge main area where your ranger welcomes you with a warm smile. He's offering you a fresh cup of coffee, a tea, and home-baked treats. And you're going to start chatting about your afternoon's plan. Your guide has been tracking a pride of lions not too far from the camp, and they're likely going to be on the move soon. So we don't want to miss that opportunity. You all climb into your open safari vehicle. The breeze is warm, that sunlight is starting to turn gold, and you set off into the wilderness. And then along the way, you see some zebras. You pause as you pass through that area. And then you see a journey of giraffes move by gracefully across the horizon. And there's this beautiful smell of sweet sage in the air. And as that sun begins to sink, your guide finds the perfect spot beneath an ancient fig tree. And the table comes out, and suddenly you're holding a perfectly mixed gin and tonic, which is the unofficial drink of Africa, or maybe a crisp Southern African rosé with some local snacks to nibble on. And just as that sky transforms and you think the evening couldn't get any better, your guide hears something on the radio and the lions are getting active. You hop back into the vehicle and there they are. A pride is stretched out near a watering hole and there's little cubs tumbling all over each other while the adults are beginning to rise and get ready for their evening hunt. This is wild, it's real, and it's only happening a few feet away. And that is what safari is all about. It's moments that unfold naturally without a script or a schedule, but somehow it all kind of feels like it's perfectly choreographed in a way. So the only schedule we adhere to, because the animals are on their own schedule, is how we structure your day around game drives. Typically, your early morning game drive starts before sunrise. That is the best time for predator activity. So you might be waking up at around 6:30, which doesn't sound so great, but I promise you it's amazing. You're going to have a butler delivering a cappuccino or a cup of tea or a cup of coffee to your room with some biscuits. You're going to get ready, and then you're going to set out for that morning game drive with your guide. You could be out there anywhere from 3 to 4 hours. It really depends on what you're going to see. Sometimes when you leave early enough, you have the opportunity to see some nocturnal animals very early in the morning. And then around the 3.5, 4 hour marker, you'll return to the lodge for your breakfast, or sometimes we treat our guests to breakfast in the bush, which is amazing. It's a full, proper breakfast too. They are cooking your eggs and bacon over an open fire. And then again, kind of what we discussed before, you have that afternoon time frame to just relax, kick up your boots, read a book, drink your champagne, go for a nature walk. There's a few different things you can do. Interestingly enough, it is kind of tiresome being on safari in the best way possible because you're taking in so much. So that lunchtime, that siesta time is really quite wonderful to have. And then at around 3:45, 4 o'clock, you'll head back out to the main lobby area, have your tea and biscuits. They're going to have a spread of nibbles for you. Your guide's going to talk to you about the evening plan, what they've seen, and possible suggestions as to where they can go, whether it's going to be tracking that pride of lion you talked about before, or maybe there is a leopard with a cub in another location. And then you'll go out for that evening game drive. Again, it's going to be around 3 to 4 hours, depending on what you see. And then you come back to the lodge and you could kick up your boots around the open fire. Again, enjoy another gin and tonic before you make your way to dinner. So that's kind of the unofficial structured day of a safari. Now, talking about seasonality, the beautiful thing about Africa is that for the most part, it is a year-round destination. It's a big continent, right? So when I'm talking about Africa, I mean everything basically south of Morocco. There are certain months we want to avoid. The only month I would say is April, because April brings the long rains in East Africa to the extent that some lodges are closed. Otherwise, January to March is a great time to go to East Africa or Southern Africa because that's calving season, and that's when we start to see the babies being born, which is my favorite time to be on safari because I love seeing the cubs. They're so cute, and you forget that they are actually dangerous. And then June to October is a fantastic time. If you've seen the migration on TV or you've heard of people wanting to witness the Great Migration, now these animals migrate all year round, and what they're doing is they're following the rain. So when it rains, they follow that sweetgrass, and there's just the volume of wildebeest and zebra. Those are the species that are migrating. It's massive. And around that June to October period, you have a river crossing. So maybe you've seen that on National Geographic or on the Discovery Channel. It is quite the spectacle. It's incredible. So we do have a lot of guests that want to travel that time of year. And then November to early December, festive, kind of a great time. The weather's beautiful. So there's really something to do all year round. It's just May in East Africa that you would really want to avoid that time of year. Outside of planning your safari around wildlife, there are other locations that we can take you to. So if you say, you know what, Kristina, I want to go witness the Great Migration, I want to go in June, perfect. Then we know we want to fly you out to Kenya to the Masai Mara. And then we also probably want to bring you to Tanzania to the Serengeti. One of the beautiful things is that it's pretty much a sure thing. You're going to see the wildebeest and the zebras there. When you're in that part of Africa, you have to stay on road because of how the government manages the vehicles. They want everybody to stay on road. And it's not a paved road, it's a dirt road. You're in the wilderness. But this is where we love private concessions. There are other parts of Africa that we can take you to. And when you're on a private concession, which is essentially it's land that no other vehicles can drive on. And when I say land, it could be up to 74,000 acres that no other vehicles are permitted to drive on except for vehicles that are associated with the lodges that are in that location. What happens is you can go off-road and you can get closer to those cubs. You also can tap into other experiences like horseback riding, camelback safaris, fly fishing, picnics by a riverbed. There's just so many things to do, and it really diversifies your trip. Why not add a hot air balloon experience to your safari? That is super cool. And it gives our guests a different perspective. So instead of driving past them, you're up, not terribly high. I'm a little afraid of heights, and my husband and I did this, and it is so beautiful and scenic. You wouldn't go for a morning game drive, but what you would do is drive out to the location. You go up in that hot air balloon as the sun's coming up. You go out for about 45 minutes to an hour, and then when you come down, you're greeted with a champagne breakfast in the bush. How many places in the world can you have champagne in the middle of Tanzania as the sun's coming up and, be surrounded by so much beauty? So that is a fantastic experience we like to incorporate. And then when we talk about the lodges, when we work with Kristina, we work with 4-star and 5-star properties. There's so many amazing products. And, it's not a one size fits all. So this is where we really like to know a little bit about your preferences and what your goals are. Or if you're not sure, then we can walk you through that. One property that I really, really do love very much is Batalor Camp in the Masai Mara. It is set, if you're not familiar with this, that's okay. It's in this area called the Great Rift Valley. It sits right on the edge of the Masai Mara. And this is important because it's a little bit more private over here. And not only that, but this property was filmed, I shouldn't say the property, but the location was filmed, if you've seen the movie Out of Africa with Meryl Streep and Robert Redford, I believe it was him, where the lodge sits, the filming was done. The last scene of that movie was filmed right there. And it also won Travel and Leisure's #1 hotel in the world and #1 safari in Africa. So we're very proud of that. And it's beautiful. I don't have a bunch of pictures. I just wanted to include one. All the rooms have these beautiful decks. So again, I keep mentioning a gin and tonic, but you are going to cross that while you're on safari, or you're having your cappuccino out here. And this kind of lantern lit deck that you see here, it overlooks the Masai Mara. And when I stayed here with my husband, we saw elephant in the distance. We saw giraffe in the distance. So we were having this really immersive experience without even leaving our room, which was absolutely incredible. And then of course you have the butler service and farm to table dining, and just really, really lovely touches. It's basically your home, but your backyard is holding zebras and giraffes and so many other beautiful wildlife. If we want to switch it up a notch and do something even more immersive, we also work with Kristina on gorilla checking. We offer this in Rwanda and Uganda. It's an incredible, mesmerizing experience. When we work on this, we do include the gorilla permits, and you would spend basically an afternoon. You'd leave the lodge early in the morning, and then you'd go for a trek up to Volcanoes National Park. And find a family of gorillas. The team is amazing there. They actually pre-trek the gorillas before they even take you up, so they know exactly where they are. And once you reach the gorillas, you spend a full hour with them. And that permit actually goes towards helping protect the silverback gorillas. There's only about 1,000 of them left in the world, which is sad, but also remarkable. We have a lot of people looking after them and ensuring their well-being. It's just an incredible experience. I mean, you usually see the big silverback kind of looking after everybody, but then you'll see the little ones pitter-pattering in the water. I actually took an advisor with me at one point, and he was bent down to take a photo, and one of the gorillas put his hand on his back, and he thought it was one of us, and he said, "Oh, excuse me," and he turned around and it was a gorilla. So they're very engaging, and it's a very safe experience. The guides are incredible, and they brief you on what that experience looks like.
Hey, now, Chelsea, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm hearing we have some technical difficulties. Oh. And I wonder if one of the issues is that at the bottom of the screen, there should be a button that says something like, and I don't have it in front of me, but to follow live. something to that effect. If you press that, it should catch you up to the slides that Chelsea is actually showing. What slide are you on, Chelsea?
I'm on Cape Town, but you know what?
Yeah.
I have
So
an
at the
I
bottom, it says live sync to presenter. And if you click that on the bottom left-hand side, it should bring up the presentation for you. It
I'm
should catch it up.
I'm sorry about that. And you know, if anyone else is having a difficult time, just raise your hand. I can always unshare the presentation and pop up again. And I think I have a fix, but if it isn't a problem
Chelsea,
for
will
any,
you actually do that for me too? When I
sure.
get kicked off, it's coming in and out for me.
Yeah, let's do
Thankfully, I've
that.
seen it before, so I can envision all these beautiful pictures.
No problem.
Thank
Let
you.
me let me try this. Once it loads, I'll hop over to Cape Town, and I'm sorry about that.
No worries. Thanks everyone for your patience.
Okay. So I'm going
Now
to press.
I can see the welcome screen.
All right, perfect. I'm going to press this button and hopefully that does the trick. And I'm going to jump ahead. I'm sorry for making everyone's head spin, but if you have any questions while I'm getting us to the correct slide, just let me know. Okay, can everyone see the Explore Beautiful Cape Town? Maybe it'll take a moment. Yes, I
Yes.
see a thumbs up. Okay, perfect.
Yes.
If this happens again, let me know and I will reassess. So making our way to South Africa. Now we are talking about Cape Town. Cape Town is one of the world's most spectacular coastal cities. It is so beautiful. It's framed by Table Mountain, which you may or may not have heard of before, but it is exactly what it sounds like, a mountain that is in the shape of a table. And then you have these orographic clouds that kind of float all over it. And it resembles almost a tablecloth. It's breathtaking. There's pristine beaches, vibrant food scene, an incredible culture scene. You can explore art galleries. There's local markets, sip a cappuccino on the waterfront. You could take a cable car up to the mountain for sunset. It is the perfect beginning to a safari, and it's also a great way to end your trip as well. So there's a few ways that we can incorporate it into the itinerary. I mentioned the cable car up iconic Table Mountain. Something that we always like to do when with Kristina's guests is we always VIP them and give them the fast pass so that there's no lines. You're making your way right up to that cable car to the top of the mountain. There's also a half-day hike for those that are a little bit more active and would rather trek up the mountain, which is it's not very strenuous. It's actually very, very beautiful. And then there's Boulders Beach. So you have this coastal side, this kind of coastal drive that you can do in Cape Town. Boulders Beach is home to a protected colony of African penguins. They are the cutest thing, was probably one of the highlights of my trip. And you can enjoy these beautiful walks along the boardwalks. You can visit a local fishing village and enjoy a champagne lunch overlooking the water. Between the city and the culinary scene and the coast, there really is so much to experience. Wine tasting is incredible. The wine country is about an hour and a half outside of the city area of Cape Town. You'll find these cute little historic towns, these gorgeous scenic vineyards, family-run estates. They make amazing Chenin Blancs. You can enjoy these long leisurely lunches, walks through the vineyards, bike rides through the vineyards, olive oil tastings, chocolate samplings. There's some properties that have exceptional experiences. There's one I love called Babylon Storen, like leather making classes, seed swapping, bread making classes. I mean, anything that you can think of. There's just so many things that you can do. We even offer wineless experiences there as well, because we have some clients that aren't drinkers, but the beauty and the scenery of the winelands is so stunning. And there's so much to do outside of just drinking some of their amazing wines. Safaring in South Africa is also incredible. The topography will be different than what you see in East Africa. You're not going to have those great big open plains, but you do have some really amazing private concessions. So we all know Kruger National Park. I'm sure we've heard of it, even if we're not very familiar with it. Within Kruger National Park and adjacent to it is different private concessions, like what we talked about before. And Ngala Private Game Reserve is a perfect example of it. So again, unlike the public locations where you actually have people that can rent their cars and they can self-drive and do their own safari, private concessions are not open to those folks. They're only open to the guests staying at the lodges. So that means no traffic jams at sightings, if you can believe that. That actually happens, unfortunately. And it's much more of a personal experience. Not only that, but a concession like Ngala, which means lion in the local Shungan language, is a private reserve that borders Kruger National Park. And it's also where you can go in search of the famous white lions. So they're not albino lions. Essentially what it is, it's caused by a recessive gene. And they only exist in one small population in the earth. So mom and dad look like regular lions, but when they mate, if they both have this recessive gene, then out pops a white cub. And they are so cute. They're actually, the cubs are all grown up now and they have their own babies. So we love our white lions in Ngala. And then as mentioned earlier, Pinda Private Game Reserve, massive, about 75,000 acres. One of the things I love about this game reserve, if you're comparing it to maybe Ngala, is that because the entire concession is private and it's where we started all of our conservation initiatives, there are so many more experiences that you can do here than you can do elsewhere in South Africa. So we have you can explore some of the locations by electric bicycle. You just slowly move through a forest guided by your ranger. There's also scenic helicopter flights, walking safaris, night drives. Kristina and I were talking about this earlier. You can actually do an ocean safari as well. How many places in the world can you go on a safari in the morning and then a beach trip in the afternoon? I mean, that's pretty amazing. And have a beach picnic with your family and go snorkeling. Pretty incredible. You can also enjoy a sleep out under the stars. This is an extraordinary way to experience African wilderness. Just think of yourself as under a blanket of stars. You're surrounded by the sounds of the bush. It's a private sleep out, so it takes place in the heart of the reserve. Your bed is set up on a raised platform with lanterns kind of glowing all around, and you'll have a dedicated team, a ranger team standing nearby. It's very safe. I've had some people say, oh no, that seems a little scary for me. It's very safe, and they have a location that they do it in. The team is absolutely incredible. You'll enjoy an elegant bush dinner around a crackling fire before you settle in for the night. It's really entirely an immersive experience and one of my favorites. And then the hands-on conservation experiences. When I mentioned a private conservation experience can really make a good safari a lifetime memory. This is what I'm talking about. In Pinda Private Game Reserve, we include rhino notching or fitting tracking collars or assisting veterinarians during wildlife monitoring. Unfortunately, rhino are heavily poached in parts of Africa, and this team is dedicated to ensuring that doesn't happen in this part of Africa. Or I think one of the most extraordinary experiences, maybe you haven't seen this little guy before. He doesn't get the same type of uh, type of publicity as the bigger cats do, but this is a pangolin. A pangolin is unfortunately the most trafficked mammal on the planet. They're very shy. Yes, I love pangolins too, John. They're very shy and gentle, and they're covered in these protective scales. Their babies are so cute. They're called pups. And unfortunately, they were poached so heavily that they were locally extinct in this area. But through a partnership between andBeyond and the African Pangolin Working Group, we've successfully introduced and rescued pangolins and put them back into the wild. And this was completely supported by our guests traveling with andBeyond. It's been so successful that the first pangolin pup was born on Pinda Private Game Reserve in 2020, and we are really just so happy for this. But they are the unicorn. So like if you see a pangolin on a safari, please tell Kristina, because I want to know about it, because I still haven't seen my pangolin on a safari, and it's at the top of my list. So I should preface this real quick. Before I go to the next slide, one of the last things that I do want to mention is a beach experience. But before I talk about the beach experience, I just want to leave you with a little video of one of our guest experiences at andBeyond Grumeti Serengeti River Lodge in Tanzania. I think this video really highlights what the Africa safari experience could look like.
Jules? Julia?
One of the amazing perks of that property too is that it sits right in front of a hippo pool. So even before you're starting your game drive, you're already interacting with wildlife because you can see the hippos interacting with one another. And sometimes there's some baboons in the far left. So it makes for a really amazing way to start your safari experience. And then lastly, I think not everyone realizes that there's some amazing beaches that you could end your safari experience on. If you're in South Africa, we love Mauritius and we love Mozambique. If you're in East Africa, we love Seychelles and we love Zanzibar. Just for logistical purposes, it's so easy to get to those ones depending on where you're going to be. And Zanzibar, for example, pristine beaches, crystal clear water, vibrant culture, snorkeling, amazing for diving. You can sail on a traditional dhow at sunset, kind of like these little boats like you see in the left-hand corner, and then have a private picnic on the island, or just simply unwind on a beachside hammock under the palms. Fun fact about Zanzibar is that Freddie Mercury grew up in Stone Town. A little bit of trivia for you. And then lastly, before I hand this back over to Kristina so she can talk about her trip, I just wanted to give you an example of a 10-night trip to South Africa. 10 nights is great. If we can get you to stay longer, even better. But I would say this is enough to get your feet wet and experience the destination. 3 nights in Ngala Tented Camp in Kruger National Park. This is where the white lions reside. Then we can move you over to 3 nights at Pinda Forest and Pinda Private Game Reserve. We do like to move our guests from one location to another because it really diversifies your itinerary. You'll have the potential of seeing different wildlife and then, of course, a completely different aesthetic with another lodge. And then you could end or almost end at Cape Town. You could do 4 nights in Cape Town, or maybe you do 3 nights in Cape Town with 2 nights in the Winelands. And then, of course, you have the beach option as well. I'll pass it over to you, Kristina. Oh, I think you're muted.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, that video especially was just so awesome. I think if it almost feels too good to be true, but I can tell you that I have been there, not to that particular lodge, but to others. and have felt that way, the way that you feel when you watch that video. And it is just unlike anything else. So thank you, Chelsea. Your presentation totally reminds me of why I do what I do, to help others and selfishly myself and my own family experience the moments that like take your breath away and stay with you long after you've come home. If everyone will humor me for just a moment, I want to close by just sharing a few things from my own safari and tell you a little bit about what it meant to me personally. Before I went, I'll be honest, safari was not at the top of my bucket list. It made me nervous, frankly, and I felt more comfortable in cities than in the bush. Like I have never even been camping. So I was concerned. But I'm so thankful that I was selected as one of 5 American travel advisors to go on this familiarization trip, which is essentially a professional development trip with andBeyond. It totally changed my perspective. Kind of like what Chelsea was describing, each morning we would wake up before sunrise. The staff would greet us with coffee and a little breakfast, and then off we'd go into the bush. I never, as nervous as I was before the safari happened, once I was there, I never felt anything but completely comfortable and safe and just in awe. The guides were so great. They read the ground like a storybook. They followed the tracks and the subtle signs of the animals to find the wildlife. Every moment felt so unhurried, but intentional and alive. My group, we saw so many animals, including the very endangered wild dogs. There were literally signs up all over the airport in Botswana saying, if you see these wild dogs, you must report them. And so our guide was reporting all the wild dog sightings. It was incredible. Also, some of the more, mundane animals, the zebras, the giraffes were just everywhere. And I never got tired of them. No matter how many giraffes I saw, they were awesome. And I was there in the spring, and so I did get to see all the cubs and the babies, and they were just so incredible. So after those awesome game drives, then you return to luxury lodges that somehow like blend perfectly into the landscape. They are warm and welcoming and peaceful, and it's a perfect balance between this raw adventure experience and total comfort and luxury. Every moment of the trip, I felt completely cared for. And I'll tell you just a quick story about the kind of hospitality that you can experience with andBeyond. When I was in Botswana, so we went to South Africa first, then to Botswana, and during some downtime, I was just chatting with the guide and telling him how much I enjoyed South Africa and the various things we did in Cape Town. And I mentioned how much I would love to take my own family, my kids, on safari. And I said, but I'm glad that when I was in Cape Town, there was a shopping mall and I was able to get my son a South African national soccer jersey because he plays soccer and he loves to collect national soccer jerseys when we travel. And that was the end of the conversation. We moved on, we talked about other things. And fast forward to when we were at the airport and we were departing, a woman from the andBeyond team, I saw her coming to me with a smile, and she had a bag in her hand and she handed it to me, and I opened the bag, and it is, and I wanted to show you guys, it is the national jersey of Botswana. Oh no, this one, sorry, this is the South Africa one. This is the one that I purchased, and then she had this one in the bag for me. I didn't ask for it. I didn't pay for it. But the guide heard me tell this story about something that was important to me, and they made it happen. Somebody on the team, it wasn't the guide because he was with me the whole time, but somebody on the team took the time to go out and get this jersey and give it to me before I left Botswana. And I mean, it just warmed my heart. I love that. So we can go over anything you want in the Q&A, but I do want to mention the investment that safari is. Truly, I hope that everyone on this call gets to go on safari at least one time in your life. Whether with me or someone else, I would urge you to plan with professionals because safari is hard to navigate and it's a big investment. But once you are there, you start to understand the value, the logistics of getting to these places in the middle of the bush. They're intense. The land that we're talking about is totally protected, and the experiences are deeply personal. Unlike, like Chelsea mentioned, unlike public parks where you see multiple Jeeps that crowd around a single lion, these private reserves feel completely untouched. You can sit there quietly and just be in that moment. I mean, some of them have just 10 or 12 rooms, and it's just so humbling, and it was emotional in ways that really surprised me. And for me, I love culture. That's my favorite thing about traveling. And so to me, the most meaningful thing was knowing that our visit helps preserve these places and support the people who work alongside the wildlife. Safari like this is not just tourism, it's truly conservation and community at work. Um, Last thing, I love that, Chelsea, that you mentioned the variety of things you can do on safari. I spent several days doing completely non-safari things in South Africa, including Cape Town, and I just love Cape Town so much. And I will say, I think at one of the restaurants in Cape Town, I had the best meal of my life. It was awesome. So we'll open it up to, so just real quick in the pictures, these are all my pictures with an iPhone. In the bottom right hand, you see the swimming pool. It was literally my private pool. It was insane. So beautiful, such awesome views. Here in the airplane, you can see that, I mean, look at the wilderness in back of me that you can see through the photos. You really are truly in the middle of nowhere, and so that's kind of the logistical element of these trips. Chelsea, you want to? Oh, and then here we have Cape Town. This is the one and only hotel in Cape Town. I walked into this lobby and gasped. I mean, the view from the lobby bar is incredible. I was amazed. And then I love this baboon that we saw. He was just sitting there. It was like we're on the roadside. I took this photo on my iPhone from the van that we were traveling in, and it was like he was waiting for the bus. He was just there. Oh, Jonathan's saying he's not seeing my photos. If you hit the sync to presenter, the live button at the bottom, maybe you'll be able to see them, hopefully. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
They just showed up a couple minutes ago.
What?
They just showed up like 40 seconds.
Okay. Okay, sorry about the technical difficulties. Do any of you guys have questions? We would be happy to answer them to the best of our ability. Any questions about, what you might pack, or anything about the danger factor? Am I the only one who worried about, as my daughter would say, getting eaten by a lion? And
actually, hi, Kristina.
Hi.
Cindy's still, she's on a plane still, so I'll be picking her up soon. But the one question that's come to our mind is that there's so much uncertainty and instability as far as travel regarding documentation these days, and how friendly different nations are. And so it's a matter of, has there been any change with U.S. and South Africa and some of these nations that we need to be aware of?
Yeah,
maybe
sure.
that's a better question for Chelsea, right?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Really, so we'll share all that information with you. Some countries require visas, and we share that information. We usually say apply, 2 to 3 weeks before you depart. South Africa, for example, you do not need a visa to enter the country. They might be moving over to an online platform where Kenya does this. It's called an ETA, but really what it is you just go on and apply and just mention your passport information, your travel dates, and where you're going to be. For example, I'm staying at andBeyond Bachelor Camp. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much it in terms of documentation. Little things to, well, I shouldn't say little things, but things to keep in mind are how many blank pages you have in your passport and how long your passport is valid for, right? And then in addition to that, for example, if you're flying into Kenya and then maybe you're heading to Tanzania, you would require a yellow fever vaccine. However, you can also talk to your medical provider if you need to have that waived, and then you just bring that certificate as well. So all these little things are items that Kristina and I will assist you with so that no stone is unturned and you feel fully prepared and briefed before you head out for your trip.
And there are little medical travel clinics that specialize in these types of things. I'll tell you that when I didn't need anything for South Africa, I have already had the yellow fever because I have been to Brazil many times. And not that I think I ever needed it, but I had it. And then in Botswana, there was I went to the Delta region, and there was a little concern at one time that there could be malaria. And so I went ahead and got the malaria pills. They were totally fine. I had no issues with them whatsoever. Some of the others who were traveling with me decided not to do that and didn't take anything. And everybody was fine. So some of it's a personal preference, but those are things that definitely we do think about and talk to you guys about depending on which location you're going to.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I'll say, and I say this for every trip, and today, unfortunately, is a very good example of why we always advise travel protection for these trips. Anytime you're traveling abroad, you want to protect yourself and your investment. And safari is definitely no different. And so that's definitely, if we have a conversation about safari, you will hear, or any other trip, to be honest, you will hear me talk about travel protection, and people will ask me, do you buy this? And the answer is yes. I do. And thankfully I haven't needed it, but I have people who are moving their Caribbean vacations all over the place right now because of the storms going through. So you just never know when you might need travel protection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true.
Any other questions? No? Okay. All right. Thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you, Chelsea and andBeyond, for sharing your incredible expertise. If anyone on the call, if you would like to explore what a safari could look like for you,